my name is Evelyn. I've been at DePaul since 2020. I've been working at the IRL since my sophomore year, 2021, 2022. In my undergrad, I studied art, media, and design with a concentration in sculpture, and now I'm a graduate student studying towards being an art educator. To be honest, I didn't know what the IRL was until I got hired, so I looked it up and I was mind blown when I saw there was like blogs of like people teaching others how to use things like sewing machines or laser cutters or overall like crafty things. I was like, this was fate. It like landed in my hands and I was like, I gotta apply. My first impression of the IRL when I actually came in person, I was so scared. I got all the training, but I was still just like not believing that I was here. But thankfully, I realized that, well, one of my coworkers, their name was Maddie, they would always say hi to people, that they're always like checking up on patrons. They also made me feel very welcomed, especially it was really nice to see another Latinx staff here. So although I was really scared and nervous and unsure of everything at first, I got to realize that the IRL space is a space for everyone, and I wanted to continue encouraging that. When I started, I saw that there was a lack of knowledge of the lab, especially more so towards cultural groups in DePaul. I would like sometimes attend these like cultural programming and I'd talk about the IRL and people would just have no idea about it. Or sometimes people would tell me that they weren't sure if they belonged here or if it was a place that they could come. So I'm really proud of that because I think through that people started coming here more so for like community gatherings or community morale activities so that people can get to know each other and feel more comfortable with one another, and I'm just really happy to be a part of that. I actually created a community mural which is in the lounge area, and my intent of that was for people to make IRL made things to then connect to the mural so that we could all make a rainbow together as a community, and so yeah, I'm really proud of that. I feel like at the IRL, I've learned how to teach in a way that makes people feel more comfortable with something that might be unknown or new to them. Something I learned from the IRL not on the job was my idea that art is always possible. The IRL was a lifesaver when it came to me making my projects because I always aimed to not spend more money than I already was on extra things like materials for my art making. I kind of limited myself to the resources that I already had and all over DePaul, including the IRL. Through trying to look for things, it kind of gave me even more ideas of what I can create. And so I think the IRL was a big part of me more so defining what my art practice is, which is centering on mainly using found objects to create. I first started off with sewing when I first started working here because it was the most familiar thing to me. I had phases of my favorite machines. I really loved the laser cutter. I know a lot about how to fix the Dremel laser cutter, and then I moved on to 3D printing. I'm glad I've been able to get a use of all of them, and I see something special more so on the creative realm with all of them, because I feel like with laser cutters or 3D printers, you know, in the world they're used in a more practical industrial design sense where like more so for producing, but I've been able to find ways I can use all of these machines in a more artistic way. The art that I make, I have seen a pattern within all my works, which has been my way to express more of my vulnerable, sad side of my life. I am a bubbly person. I am very friendly, but I found that art is a way to more so be able to express those moments that I have of vulnerability or sadness, touching on my experiences being first generation, child of immigrants, and the realities that I've seen within my life in juxtaposition with the colorful, vibrant art that can come from my community, Mexican American community. Prideful, like being proud of being resilient, being proud of all the hard work that our ancestors have done. But I more so want to touch on the realities of the pain it takes to be resilient. Although it's great that we are strong, I want to be a little bit more vulnerable about it so people can better understand that it's not an easy thing to live like this. I don't know where my art would be without the IRL. I mean, my literal final capstone project had to do with 3D printing, and if I never arrived here and I never learned 3D printing, what would my final have been? I had a project where I had to think about something that can be created but then destroyed, And the idea that I thought about was money. I went to the Money Museum. They would give out Fed shreds, which is like a little souvenir that people can take from the Money Museum in downtown. And so the idea that I got was making a bear out of money. But I wasn't quite sure how I was gonna actually do that. So I started scavenging around the fabric scraps, and I first found like this little red fabric. I tried making my own fabric with the money shreds that I had. I like laminated money, and I even tried sewing on top of that as well. But then I finally found this like mesh fabric, and I was like, oh, maybe this could work a lot better. With the mesh, I was able to make my own fabric to make this little bear right here, which, yeah. My partner DJ, who used to work here and also used to be a patron here, helped me learn how to put two 3D prints together. This artwork is called Bearing Life, and it's a little guy. He's so fragile. I pretty much made my own fabric out of mesh to be able to make him. If you look a lot closer, you'll see all the stitchings that I made with the sewing machine, and you can more so tell that I've used mesh to create this little guy. What I'm trying to speak to in this artwork is pretty much how I feel like there's this saying of like money buys happiness, and you know, some people say no, that's not true, but in terms of my life and how I grew up, very financially unstable along with my family, it was just really hard. This piece also comes along with like a little noose, but I forgot it today. But just to make it a little more extreme of what I'm saying, this one is Get Well Soon. At the art school, I learned this application called Mesh Mixer, where you can mix two things together into one model. I found like this Virgin Mary. I put it together, as you can see, with alcohol bottle. At first I made it like this was the complete look, and then on Thingiverse I put it in half so that I can then vacuum form these. So here I used a vacuum former to then put them. This was like my test before I actually did like the big thing. Once I felt like I was ready, I did it a bigger version, and then I vacuum formed that into this. Inside there are fake Tylenol pills, or like I 3D printed the pills too. I like that it looks not trusting. The inspiration to this, I realized that my parents, due to lack of health care or other things, they always gravitated towards quick reliefs. They work really hard constantly, and I remember growing up, they would come home and just take Tylenol like every day to help them with their soreness. To me, like, being sore is normal, but to them, like, being sore every day, they needed a quick remedy to relieve that pain, you know? But constantly, as you continue taking Tylenol, you start getting more used to it, and so does it really give an effect at all? But also, the reason why I put a religious figure here, La Virgencita, to me it's really sad to see how religion is a way for people to trust that everything will be okay when things are really not, and kind of blind people towards their own reality. This one's my biggest accomplishment yet. This was my capstone for my art degree, and basically it's half 3D printed and half an actual bowl. I 3D scanned my face. I modeled it so that I could make half of this other jar. So at first I 3D scanned this ceramic bowl that I had, and then I cut it in half, and then I put my faces on the other half. And my aim for this was to be a boiling pot. So along with this, it's not attached right now, but along with this, I have this like air pump made out of a heart that I used the sewing machine at the IRL for. And the purpose of this is because I started to reflect on my last year in my undergrad, where I realized that there's a lot on my plate when it comes to helping my family. I didn't realize how a big component I was until I was thinking about my future and how my future success is really important. It is needed for my family to survive, That sounds very extreme, but it's the truth. And so this pot was meant to kind of be an ode to child of immigrants or kids who tend to be the caregivers for their families and the pressures that it takes to be resilient among that experience. So that's why this pot would be boiling. In terms of the technological component of this, of like why use 3D printed objects, like why didn't I just sculpt it myself? I started thinking that this is more of a traditional side, like of how my parents were raised, of how I was raised. My experiences having to take care of them or do a lot for them have then made it so that my potential future might not be that great. It might come with a lot of self-doubt. It might come with a lot of pain to figure out what I could do to be more independent, figuring out my own identity while my family's identity is tied to me as well. The past, the future, and what is it that we must do now so that our future isn't so painful. I have felt very welcomed here. The IRL is definitely an inclusive space. Don't let your fears get in the way of great opportunities. I was so scared to come here, and I'm thankful that despite how scared I was or how much self-doubt I had, I still made it, and I've accomplished a lot of great things that I never thought I would if it wasn't for this opportunity that I took on with being at the IRL. If you're feeling that way, just come on in, whether that's learning something new or some other things in your life that you're wondering if you should try, you should definitely go for it.